Dober dan in lepo pozdravljeni, spoštovane in spoštovani. Takole je bila tole naša mlada Ladeja Rožman iz glasbene šole Brežice, njena učiteljica pa je, včasih smo temu rekli tovarišica, no danes so gospe učiteljice, torej Anita Veršec, gospa Anita, tam je, tako da čestitke tudi vam, da takole spodbujate tale naš mladi rod. In mimogrede lahko povem, da sva se z Ladejo prej pogovarjala, sem rekel, kako pa je takole kot mlada, ki mora stopiti pred publiko. A je kaj treme, pa pravi tolikokrat nastopom, da sem že treme izgubila. Tako da mislim, da je to kar dobra popotnica za tole našo mlado glasbenico in dobra popotnica seveda tudi za naše današnje druženje. To druženje bi skoraj lahko rekli, se začne tako pravlično, kot v tisti pravljici Mojci po Kacuji, ker je v majhnem piskrčku premalo prostora za vse živali, ki so prišle noter. No in danes je skoraj takole nekako tukaj, kar ni vedno samoumevno za slikarske razstave, ki so tako ali drugače bolje ali slabše obiskane. Seveda Geri Pukovnik je tisto ime, ki pripelje ljudi iz vsega sveta in verjamem, da bomo danes marsikakšno lahko še rekli na račun slikanja in seveda, da bomo tudi njega predstavili malce širši luči oziroma bolje rečeno predstavil se bo tudi sam. Če smo slišali tisto Jaz sem mala roža, verjamem, da se je marsikdo popeval, tako da lahko zraven tisto otroško, tako rekoč ljudsko pesmico, bomo šli zdaj malce sanja še za uvod. Gre seveda za skladbo Edvarda Giulianija Daydream, torej sanje podnevi, ki se včasih uresničijo, spet drugič pa ne. Torej, dame in gospodje, še enkrat pozdravimo Ladejo Rožman.
Izjemno sem vesela, da si danes prevzel talonček, oziroma ta naš mali auditorij, ker jaz mislim, da nekaj najlepšega, ko se pač združi več ustanov, ko se združi več kolegov, ko imamo to veliko priložnost pustiti ljudi tako iz naše širše okolice, naprimer od teh Jurija Dalmatina, naše sosede iz glasbene šole Brežice, potem pa seveda tudi vse vas, ki ste prišli od blizu in daleč, tisti, ki imate izkušnje tudi tujine, recimo, imamo tudi naše drage prijatelje muzeja in seveda, da lahko pozdravimo tudi pomembne goste. Najprej je to gospa Suzana Martinez, vodja sektorja za Slovence po svetu, na Uradu za Slovence po svetu, na ministrstvu, kaj je to? Urad, nimamo ministrstva, se opravičujemo. Na Uradu za Slovence po svetu, res hvala, da ste prišli k nam v Brežice in da ste nas počastili s to prisotnostjo. In pa seveda tudi predsednik Združenja Slovenska izseljenska matica, dr. Boris Jesih, soproga, tudi najlepša hvala, da ste prišli. Imeli smo priložnost se že spoznavati in družiti tudi popoldne. Mi da so se tudi srečali, gospod sicer ni etnolog, to je minus, ampak drugače pa velik raziskovalec in izjemen človek, ki pač vodi Slovensko izseljensko matico in pa seveda tisti, zaradi katerega smo se tukaj zbrali, to pa naš dragi Geri Pukovnik. On sicer ne govori slovensko, ampak verjamem, da zdaj vse razumete. I said, we don't speak Slovenian English, you do, not Slovenian, but actually you understand quite a lot, because now we are thankful that you are here with all your colleagues, with all the supporters, with all the institutions that supported and enabled this exhibition to be as well hosted in our museum, in our regional museum. Gospod Pukovnik ni čisto povezan s Posavjem, včasih pač rečemo, mi smo regionalni muzej, pa si želimo, da so zgodbe povezane s Posavjem, ampak vse je povezano, ne? In vedno smo zelo veseli, ko lahko spoznamo življenje in delo ljudi, ki v Sloveniji o nas, o dediščini, o prednikih govorijo na poseben način in seveda ustvarjajo tudi popolnoma svojo zgodbo, katere del smo danes postali, seveda tudi mi z odprtjem te razstave in z dostopnostjo te razstave v naslednjih tednih tudi pri nas. Tako da moja naloga je, da izrazim veliko veselje, da se je to zgodilo. Dogovarjali smo se že nekaj časa in tukaj sem zelo vesela, da je z nami tudi Beba Pletavar, ki je tudi malo zaslužna, ne? In da je pri tem pripomogel tudi pokojni prijatelj gospoda Gerija Dušan Obrč, naš rojak Brežičan, ampak o tem seveda bo tudi gospod Bokovnik sam povedal, vseeno pa prav, da tudi jaz omenim. Žal je ta naš Brežičan ravno pred 2 mesecema umrl, tako da ga ni danes tukaj, ni doživel tega, verjamem pa, da je bil izjemno vesel, da smo lahko prišli do tega lepega dne. Torej, želim vam krasen večer, uživajte v teh izjemnih delih. Hvala vsem, ki so pripomogli k pripravi te razstave, tako gospa Jasmina kot sodelavci našega muzeja. In verjamem, da bo razstava nagovorila naše številne obiskovalce v tem lepem mesecu maju in da bomo, upam, še kdaj deležni vaše umetnosti. I said that we are really honored that we have your exhibition here and it was an excellent afternoon. Thank you for that and I hope to see you again soon. We wish you a lot of joy this evening and in the next days and hope that you come back to Slovenia very soon.
In zagotovo je, bomo rekli, vsaj delček odgovornosti za to, da je tudi Slovenija tako umeščena v te mednarodne povezave, tudi pri eni izmed tistih organizacij, brez katere današnje razstave tam tukaj ne bi bilo. To je Slovenska izseljenska matica, tako da ne vem, kako naj evrovizijsko zdaj to zapeljem, dragi Boris, ampak dame in gospodje, pozdravimo torej našega naslednjega gosta, predsednika Slovenske izseljenske matice, doktorja Borisa Jesika.
Jaz nisem to evrovizijski, kot moja predgovorca, se bom potrudil po najboljših očeh. Torej, spoštovana grajska gospa, spoštovani gostje, dragi Geri, zelo sem vesel, da smo lahko danes tukaj. Vam posebna hvala za to, da smo lahko v teh čudovitih Brežicah, v tem čudovitem paviljonu, v tem čudovitem gradu danes gosti. Jaz upam, da v vaši obiskovalci zašli sem in videli te prelepe Rožice. Na Slovenski izseljenski matici letos smo mimogrede 75 let. Se trudimo, da poskušamo, včasih je bila naša naloga nekoliko drugačna. Danes je država prevzela vse tistih nalog, ki smo jih imeli. Zato se trudimo, da predstavimo Slovencem, prebivalcem Slovenije čim več dosežkov, čim več posameznikov, čim več društev z celega sveta. Geri je že 4. razstava, ki jo imamo. Prva je bila leta 1994, tako, druga je bila 2010. Lansko leto smo imeli 2 razstavi, na Uradu za Slovence in ta je tukaj, se pravi, že 5. razstava. Te Rožice, ki so tukaj, tako da je to nekaj, kar nas, bom rekel, navdaja z ponosom, da smo lahko pripomogli, da ga v bistvu slovenska publika spozna. Tisti, ki boste hoteli videti, kako je Geri izgledal leta 1994, ste vabljeni letos od 3. junija do konca avgusta imamo v Jakobiču in Strojevniču v Tivoliu razstavo o 75 let Slovenske izseljenske matice, kjer boste videli Gerija tudi z letošnjega nedelja.
Kakorkoli že, do tega bova še prišla, kako pa Gerija vidi in njegovo delo, seveda, pa bomo slišali zdaj v enem takšnem orisu, ki ga bo podala draga kolegica Monika Ivančič-Švajfar, kolegica z Javnega sklada Republike Slovenije za kulturne dejavnosti, tako da, draga Monika, prosim.
Hvala lepa, dobro večer tudi v mojem imenu. Zdaj, moji predhodniki so se takole v besedah sprehodili po celem svetu. Jaz bi si drzala mogoče iti malo na 4. dimenzijo, se pravi skozi čas. Namreč malo prej sem prišla tukaj, sem bila malo zgodnja in sem si imela možnost, da sem tukaj čisto sama pomeditirala na tej razstavi še in se tudi malo sprehodila po tem prekrasnem Brežiškem gradu in Posavskem muzeju. In sem razmišljala o tem, da tukaj ta slikarska tradicija tukaj v Brežiškem gradu, ki je baročna, zelo dobro napeljuje potem to nit k tej razstavi. Namreč v času baroka se je začel razvijati motiv tihožitja, cvetličnega tihožitja kot samostojen motiv. No, ampak zdaj, da ne bi mislili, da bom zdaj celo to umetnostno zgodovinsko pregledno predavanje naredila, bi se kar priskočila na leto 2010. Takrat sem Gerija prvič spoznala in sicer je bil udeleženec slikarske kolonije za Slovence po svetu, ki ga organizira Združenje Slovenska izseljenska matica. Takrat še nisem bila zaposlena na Javnem skladu za kulturne dejavnosti, ampak sem bila samostojna kustosinja kuratorka in sem vodila to kolonijo in sem tudi otvarjala 3 razstave Gerija po Sloveniji. In takrat sem se navdušila nad njegovim delom, zlasti so me osebno presunili njegovi velikoformatni akvareli. Zdaj en primer imate tamle na tej steni, še ena večja slika, 4,5 metre velika, je bila lansko leto razstavljena v atriju ZRC SAZU v Ljubljani. In jo je Geri Bukovnik takrat doniral Uradu za Slovence po svetu, tako da je ostala, to je bila tudi njegova želja, v lasti slovenske države. Seveda so pa tudi tele majhne, malo bolj intimne slike cvetličnih tihožitij posebne. Namreč nekako na piedestal postavljajo cvetlični šopek kot motiv, ki je ne samo vreden upodabljanja, ne samo nek tehten motiv, ki ga umetnik nekako proučuje, ampak so ti šopki kot nekako na oltarju, v središču pozornosti. Če jih boste pozorno pogledali, boste videli, da je vsak cvet obdan z enim takim posebnim sijajem, kot eno auro, da sije, glow, bi rekli v angleščini, izžareva iz notranjosti cveta navzven neko življenjsko energijo, življenjsko silo. In to niso kakšne posebne eksotične cvetlice, ki bi imele neke oblike zelo posebne ali pa presunljive v smislu, da jih ne vidimo povsod, ravno obratno. To so cvetlice, ki jih vidimo, ko pogledamo v kmečki vrt, ko pogledamo okrog sebe, ko pogledamo včasih tudi na travnik, ko pogledamo recimo na bližnji bajer ali pa ribnik. Tako da se mi zdi ta preprostost, skromnost živega, ki je v tem, kot včasih rečemo, jo moramo iskati v vsakdanjih stvareh okoli sebe, pa včasih tega ne znamo, to Geri povzdigne kot umetnik in kot človek nam predoči. In to je mene v bistvu tudi iz moje neke zbudilo, iz ene moje, bom rekla, skoraj da predsodka, ki sem ga imela pred cvetličnimi tihožitji ali pa nekimi, bom rekla, takimi skoraj banalnimi upodobitvami, ki so večkrat dekorativne, je prav njegovo delo me prepričalo, da je to res tudi danes, v 21. stoletju, lahko tehten umetniški motiv. Se mi zdi, da je tudi tale razstava, ki je tukaj v tem krožnem prostoru tako intimno postavljena, zato vse pohvale muzeju in muzejskim sodelavcem, ki so tudi tako lepo poskrbeli za postavitev, ki res harmonično deluje, se mi zdi, da je še nadgradila to, kar smo že lansko leto v atriju ZRC SAZU lahko videli.
Dame in gospodje, poklet Jurija Dalmatina.
Pastirče mlado in milo, šta si se tako zmudrilo. Pastirče mlado in milo, šta si se tako zmudrilo. Pastirče mlado in milo, šta si se tako zmudrilo. Il ti è stato nestalo, il ti è srce klonilo. Il ti è stato nestalo, il ti è srce klonilo. Il ti è stato nestalo, il ti è srce klonilo. Meni je stato nestalo, meni je srce klonilo. Meni je stato nestalo, meni je srce klonilo. Meni je stato nestalo, meni je srce klonilo.
Takole, zdaj pa je čisto zareči čas, da sem na naš stol povabimo Garyja Pukovnika. Dear Gary, can you come closer? Which seat are you going to take?
This one.
Okay. So, to so zdaj kot pri predsedniku, ko ti še vodo prinesejo, to pa imajo lepo poštimano. Nagrado, ne, znajo servisirajo. Dear Gary, I must admit something. We have no script now.
Okay.
So that means, because usually when we start talking, last time when we were sitting down, I think we were talking for 4 hours. So now we have we have quite a big problem how to make an introduction to this, to introduce you and talk a bit about your painting, but we only have not 4 hours, but 15 minutes for that. So this is kind of a mission impossible. Moramo vprašati, seveda, to moramo počasi tudi prevajati ali vsaj povzemati z Garyjem, ko se usedeva, to navadno traja kar nekaj ur, nazadnje sva sedela 4 ure in klepetala in se veste, čas potem preprosto nekam pobegne. Zdaj imamo pa pravzaprav nemogočo nalogo v 15 minutih predstaviti njega in seveda njegovo slikanje. So, dear Gary, my first question for you would be, if you know that you have only 15 minutes, how would you introduce yourself?
I was born in the Slovenian community in Cleveland, Ohio. You know, the other Ljubljana. And I've been painting flowers or attracted to flowers since I'm about 4 years old. So what you see here is actually, in addition to being pictures of flowers, it's also pictures of myself and pictures of how I feel about life, and that's about it.
Torej, gre za gospoda, ki pravi, in ga vsi dobro poznamo kot zelo emotivnega človeka. Na eni strani pravi, da se je rodil v Clevelandu, drugi Ljubljani, tako rekoč. In to je človek, ki je bil zelo povezan z slikanjem rastlin oziroma predvsem rož, tako rekoč od svojega ranega otroštva, in ravno to ga moram zdaj vprašati naprej. But I think when we speak about your painting flowers,
yes,
there were also some. Your grandmother was very connected,
yes,
interlaced with that.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
As I said, I was born in Cleveland in the Slovenian community, and my mother and father lived in an apartment above the house of my great-grandmother. And my great-grandmother had a rose garden, but she permitted no children to go in her rose garden. So if I was good, and I held my hands behind my back, I could go into the garden, provided I didn't, yes, that I wouldn't touch anything. And I could just go and I could smell the flowers. If I was very good, she would let me pick up the fallen petals on the ground, and I could take those home to my mother. So many times people ask, why do you paint flowers? Well, in this case, the case of this artist, it's not the artist who chose the subject matter, but the subject matter that chose the artist. It took me many years to realize this, but it has been a big gift to me that I'm allowed to do this, you know?
Be chosen.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I have to translate
Yes,
a little
that's
bit.
fine.
Torej, govoril je o svoji prababici, ki je imela velik rožni vrt in v tem rožnem vrtu je lahko vstopil le, če je bil zelo priden. Ampak ob tem je mogel imeti roke na hrbtu, tako kot imajo pridni otroci, da se ne bojo česa dotaknili. Danes tudi v muzeju nimajo tako strogih režimov, to vam lahko Alenka zagotovo pove. No, če je bil pa posebej priden, je lahko pa celo tiste cvetlične, rožne, vrtnične liste pobral. In verjetno je to eden izmed tistih motivov oziroma tistih stvari, ki so ga tako inspirirali, da je že zelo zgodaj začel slikati seveda rastlinje oziroma te cvetlice. In pravzaprav je ravno ta njegova prababica bila ena izmed tistih oseb, ki je pomembno vplivala na to, kot pravi on, da je bil izbran. Ne da je on izbral motiv, ampak da je motiv pravzaprav izbral njega, da ga lahko slika. I was wondering, I know that there were quite some issues, some problems when you were painting flowers in America. It was never very, we have it as a saying in Slovenia, it was never very covered with flowers. Your path was never covered with flowers, if I translate it directly. Torej, on je imel kar precej težav, ko je začel slikati rože in njegova pot mu ni bila posuta z rožami, tako rekoč, s tem, če dobesedno prevedem, kot sem poskušal v angleščino.
Oftentimes in life, the path that we choose, or the path that we think we want to go on, this is not the path that life has chosen for us. So the same was true for me. Painting flowers, especially in the United States, it's different in Europe, it's different in Japan, it's different in China. But in the United States, painting of flowers is not seen as an appropriate subject for contemporary art. So I wanted more than anything to be an artist. So when I moved to San Francisco, I had made a decision that I would stop painting flowers, that I was going to be in San Francisco and I was going to be a real artist and I was going to paint landscapes. So I did this and it was okay, it was all right, not great, okay. And one day, I had been very fortunate. I have a friend who has a friend who had a friend who had a gallery.
Okay.
And so I was taken into the gallery. And that also went fine, it was okay. And one day the phone rings and the director of the gallery says, could you please come into the gallery and see me? I have to talk to you about your painting. Well, I said, of course. So I hang up and I go into the gallery. He takes a look at me and he says, what's wrong with you? I said, well, you want me to come down here to talk about my painting. I think you're going to tell me you want me out of the gallery. And he said, no. You're fine, everything is fine. But you know, Gary, I look at your painting, I look at you, and I think, you should be painting flowers. Well, I didn't know what to say, because I want to be an artist, and I can't be an artist if I'm painting flowers. So then I go home, and I start painting flowers for him, for the gallery. I'm sure, for purely practical reasons. He thought he could sell flowers and he could sell more flowers than he could sell landscapes. And so I'm painting the pictures and I think to myself, you know, who does an artist create for? Who does an artist paint for? Do I paint for Tomasz? Maybe he likes it. Maybe he doesn't like it. Or I paint for Monica. She doesn't like it. Or maybe she likes it. Well, what can you do? The answer is you paint for yourself. You make for yourself. So I decided I'm going to do what I want to do. This is what I want. This is what I'll do. And if it works out, that's fine. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. Well, as it turns out, this is the secret to how to make a life in art, how to do anything that you want to do. You simply tell the truth. You tell the truth about yourself, and you try hard, and you commit yourself to an amount of work that will make this all happen. And amazingly, it has worked out.
Okay, I'll try
Yes,
to make
all
a
right.
resume. Huh?
Okay, right.
Naj samo govorimo vsi angliško. Ja, ne? Okay. Je potrebno vseeno malce povedati. Torej, njegova... Dobro, seveda gre za zgodbo, ki se je začela v Ameriki, kjer seveda trg ni najbolj podpiral, ameriški trg ni podpiral tega slikanja rastlin oziroma samih rož. In zaradi tega tam Gary ni bil sprejet kot pravi umetnik. Pravi umetniki so tam slikali bodisi abstraktne oziroma predvsem te pokrajine, in zato se je odločil, da bo pač slikal pokrajine. In nekega dne je prijatelj prijatelja in tako naprej, ki ima galerijo, ga je vendarle poklical, naj se ustavi v tisti galeriji, zato da mu bo povedal nekaj o njegovih slikah. In nenazadnje prišlo je do tega, da ko je že mislil, da ga bo vrgel ven, mu je rekel, ne, s tabo je vse v redu, ti boš ostal tukaj, ampak morda je bolje zate, da slikaš rože. No, tako se je zadeva seveda razvila naprej, Gary je začel slikati rože in to je pravzaprav postala neka njegova resnica. Resnica o njem, on je na tak način našel svoj izraz tudi o sebi in to je pravzaprav tisto, kar govori, da to je tista pot, ki jo ima in jo je razvil do danes. But Gary, I never asked you, actually, did you always paint with watercolors or did you start also with other techniques?
No, it was always watercolor. So just as the flowers have chosen me, the medium with which I work was chosen by my mother.
Okay, there's always a woman
Yes,
somewhere
yeah.
in the story. Okay.
So, as a child, I mean, those of you who have children who like to paint, you know, my mother would put newspaper down on the table, 2 or 3 layers thick.
Okay.
And I was allowed to use watercolor because it was not so messy.
Okay.
And so I have always painted with watercolor. I can do other things too. I can paint with oil paints. I can draw. I can do a lot of things. But the thing that is closest to my heart is watercolor. And this also is another issue. Watercolor, at least in our part of the Western world, was seen not so much as high art. This was seen as a preparatory kind of material or a second class thing. So for a while I had someone who I was working with who kept suggesting oil painting. So I took off a year and I painted in oils. At the conclusion of the year, you should also understand, in my studio, oil painting is not compatible with watercolor. Oil painting is much messier, and it kind of makes this thin film over everything in the room. And so it was really an agony for me to do this. I don't like it. And
It's too messy.
No, it's just an agony. Watercolor is thinking from light to dark, while oil painting is thinking from dark to light.
Okay.
And I am a person, I'm very optimistic. and I think I have more light in me than I have dark. So at the conclusion of the year, he was looking at my paintings and he was saying, "Oh no, I thought they were going to look different than this." I said, "Why would they look different?" "Why, I thought they were going to look like," and he named another artist, a very famous oil painter. And I said, no, not at all, not at all. And I thought to myself, I've spent 1 year miserable painting in oils for all the wrong reasons. So I got rid of everything, and I decided, well, watercolor, just like flowers, watercolor is what it is. You take it or you leave it. I love it. And yes, I love my life. I warned you, I'm an emotional old man.
I'll do the translation.
All right.
Torej, govorili so o tem, kako je on sploh začel pravzaprav s slikanjem. Je bilo vedno to z vodnimi barvami, so bile tudi druge tehnike in pravi, da so ga pravzaprav nekdaj spremljale te vodne barve, ampak v nekem trenutku, po tistem seveda zapletu v sami galeriji, pa pravi, da je poskušal z oljnimi barvami, ampak oljne barve, no, vsi tisti, ki smo jih kdaj poskusili, vemo, da končajo povsod drugod, samo na platno, ne takšni, kot bi morale biti. Predvsem pa za njega je bolj kot to, če lahko rečemo, da so oljne barve malce bolj umazane, pod narekovaji, seveda, za njega je to bilo drugačen pristop k slikanju. Na eni strani imamo seveda te oljne barve, ki grejo svetlega na temno, medtem ko pri vodnih barvah je pa ravno obratno, a ne, se pravi iz temnega na svetlo. Oziroma, tako zdaj sem pa iznevel. Torej, razumemo, torej iz temnega na svetlo, ne. In on pravi, v meni je več svetlobe, jaz imam rad življenje, v meni je več svetlobe, bliže so mi te barve. In ko je eno leto slikal z oljnimi barvami, je na koncu prišel seveda do tega, da so rekli, da niso bili zadovoljni z rezultatom, zato se je odločil, grem nazaj k mojim vodnim barvam in hočete ali nočete, vodne barve so pač tiste, s katerimi bom ustvarjal in danes vidimo, kaj je tukaj nastalo. So, if you would give an advice maybe to a younger self, what would you say to you?
Well, just what I have told you. You should do what you want to do. You follow your passion. You follow what you love. You know, many times I hear people talk about the secret. What is the secret to having a profession in art? It's in anything. You do what you love. If you do it, and you really mean it, and this is the truth, maybe it's naive of me, but I think it works out. Somehow it works out. Now, a lot of times people say to me, "Oh, you have so much talent." No, I don't. My one talent is determination. I have what I have. It's neither better than others or less. It's just what I have. The thing that I have developed is this determination. I never give up. And it's worked out. It has worked out for me. On the other hand, I should also tell you, I don't know how to do anything else. So there's no choice.
Okay. Torej, neke vrste nasvet samemu sebi, sledi svojim sanjam, če tako rekoč povzamem njegove misli, gre seveda za to, da pravi, da moramo slediti temu, kar želimo delati, in predvsem pa, da ni samo talent tisto, ampak neka vrsta odločenost, to vztrajanje pri tem svojem delu. Pravi, da tudi sam sebe ne vidi kot človeka z velikim talentom, ampak preprosto človeka, ki je zelo odločen, da dela to, kar pač rad počne. O talentih, o tem naj sodi vsak sam. But I would like to come to you that we maybe shed some light to your connection to Slovenia. How are you actually connected to Slovenia?
Well, my family is from Ljubljana, from Senčur, and this is where my grandfather was born. And I have a lot of relatives here, but also, you know, growing up in the Slovenian community in Cleveland, it's not like being here, but it's not very different than being here. It's the same.
What is different now? I would really like to know.
Well, I think Slovenia has more open heart.
Okay. This is what we like to hear, of course.
Oh, really? I mean, this is, don't you think, I've always thought, the depth of feeling of people here is profound to me. In America, I mean, America is very, very nice, don't get me wrong, but oftentimes society prevents you from expressing your feelings or expressing who you really are. Instead, one has the opportunity to pretend to be something different. I guess I'm too old to pretend to be something different anymore, but if it wasn't for being Slovenian, I couldn't do what I do, because art it has many different messages in art, but one of the very main ones is how I feel. So I'm painting how I feel. These are all, I don't mean to sound grand, but they are all portraits of me, of different attitudes, of different feelings. Slovenia, I mean, I'm so proud to be Slovenian. You better translate.
I got the clue. Torej, seveda, gre za to, da on je podjetko je pravzaprav Slovenec in takole, ko je malce primerjal, kako je živeti v Clevelandu in v Sloveniji, pravi, malo je razlik, ampak eno pa je, to je seveda, da ne bi bili Slovenci tukaj bolj odprtega srca, bolj topli ljudje. In sam povezuje tu predvsem s svojim umetniškim izrazom. On lahko tukaj pravzaprav je, kdor je, kakor se pač počuti, in nenazadnje verjetno so tako sprejete tudi te njegove slike, da na hitro povzamem. But I would like to ask you, you were telling me about your grandmother, or
Yes,
great-grandmother, that
yes.
she was cooking strudel for you. Have you ever tried to cook strudel?
Have I ever tried
Yes.
to cook? Many years ago, I used to love to cook, and I was very good at making strudel. And the way my grandmother would make strudel was, after the strudel is made, there's all this extra dough that comes off.
Okay.
And so you finish that, and now it's time for strudel. So the dough has now rested, and I would roll it out. Now it was my grandmother. What she would make was with breadcrumbs and a scrambled egg, and maybe a little parsley, and maybe a little sugar, and maybe a little cracklings, and then rolled up, and it would be boiled. And then, of course, after it's done, it would be cut, and then she would fry it in butter. So it would
Okay,
be a
I
little...
need to translate this recipe.
Okay.
Yeah, this is very important. Torej, njegova babica je kuhala pravzaprav, oziroma prababica štrukle iz ostankov testa štrudla, tako rekoč, ne. Noter je stepla jajce, dala malce peteršilja, zraven dodala še malce ocvirkov, to se skupaj zavila, skuhala, tako kot se pa seveda štrukli morajo skuhati, nato pa vse skupaj popekla v maslu. Tako da to imamo tako rekoč ene štrukle, ki jih na Slovenskem ne bomo srečali kar tako, ne. Gre za eno tako ameriško varianto štruklov, če govorimo seveda o nekih tipičnih štruklih. Na Slovenskem mimogrede jih imamo kar nekaj desetin nadevov, tudi takšne z ocvirki in jajci, ampak to vam bo kdaj Alenka tukaj naredila kako predavanje, ko to je taka etnološka tema o štruklih tukaj v muzeju, ne. Alenka, kuhaš kaj štruklov?
Ja, Pečjakove.
Dobro. To je, med etnologi velja tako, če ne znaš kuhati štruklov, ti skoraj titulo vzame. To je tak stereotip med etnologi. By the way, I was teasing a little bit Alenka.
Yeah.
She can cook štruklji, but she's not maybe the master chef of it. Let's say it like that. Okay, so you tried to do this štruklji?
Yeah.
And should I ask Jan, were they good?
He never had it. No.
He never had it?
No.
Okay, but okay, let's go.
It was okay.
It was okay.
Okay. Only okay.
Okay, so next time we will cook the štruklji together. Okay?
All right.
Good. It's always, I know that Jasmina is already saying there that we are out of this time frames that we've had here, but let's see a little bit into your future. What are your plans for the future? What are you going to do?
Well, there are exhibitions in the United States coming up, and then next year will be my 80th birthday, and so for my 80th birthday, there will be a large exhibition in Cleveland at a beautiful old gallery, and then there will also be simultaneously at the Slovenian Cultural Center in Cleveland another exhibition, and there will be also at that time will be the showing of a documentary which is being made about my life, and also we will, after that, what I would like is I want to come here, and so we will come here, and I think also have a showing of the documentary and so forth.
The documentary from last year, this one.
Yes, from those of you who saw the exhibition in Ljubljana, you may have seen the director of the film. He was filmmaking, and the film now is in the editing phase. So I was told it will be finished this summer. The director wanted to be here today, actually, but for his reasons he couldn't do it. But we'll see. It should be finished by summer.
So you have a busy year ahead.
Yes, yeah. And so I think that will be a proper celebration of turning 80, if I say so myself. And what else do I have planned? I have planned to make many more paintings.
Okay. Torej, drugo leto Gary praznuje 80 let, zato bo imel kar nekaj razstav, seveda tam v Združenih državah, tudi v tem slovenskem kongresnem centru, če sem prav, kulturnem centru, če sem prav prevedel. Med drugim pa načrtuje, da da bo prišel tudi v Slovenijo in da bomo lahko tukaj pogledali dokumentarec, ki smo ga snemali že lansko leto ob njegovem prihodu tukaj v Slovenijo. In seveda po njegovem potovanju tudi po Evropi in tako naprej. Danes bi se sam avtor tega dokumentarca rad udeležil, ampak žal se pač ni mogel. Gary, do you have a favorite Slovenian song?
The one that I hear next.
Okay, this is the best answer. You should be a politician, you know? And what we will hear, it's the 3 love songs from Istria, and the next one is going to be I'm a Slovenian.
Yeah.
So, torej, 2 pesmi bomo slišali, gre seveda za en venček ljudskih pesmi iz slovenske Istre z naslovom 3 ljubezenske z Istre in na koncu seveda tako, ki jo moramo Garyju zapeti, ki jo imam, sam tudi vem, da zelo rad Slovenec sem. Dame in gospodje, pozdravimo tako za zaključek še oktet Jurija Dalmatina iz Boštanja. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. Oh.
Slovinec sem, tako je mati zjala, ko me je dite pistovala, zato naj te pravim, Slavinecem, jas ljubim očetnjavo, gorim za njeno čast in slavo, gorim za njeno čast in slavo. Kar čutim čisi, slavinecem, kar čutim to povim, slavinecem, slavinecem. Slavinecem, slavinecem, ozibeli do groba, ne